Good evening once again. Welcome back to Open Line. We're coming up on the half hour. I want to remind you of the topic we have tonight, talking about the cost of being a parent here in Tennessee. It can be hard sometimes just to make it as a family. I have two wonderful experts to talk to us about efforts that are being made to change that and to change the tide of it. Shanna Hughey from Think Tennessee, a nonpartisan think tank, and also Feroza Freeland from A Better Balance. Thank you both for being here once again.
Thanks for having us.
I want to talk about the move to really push for a better Family Leave Act. A lot of companies don't pay for it. Women and men are allowed to take off, but they do it on their own dime, and that can be very hard to do. What efforts are being made to move this push forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's, such an important issue for, families in our state and across the country. Yeah. We have some data from the Tennessee Department of Health. This is just specifically for mothers. But they survey new mothers every year, and of the mothers that they surveyed, just over 40% of them took paid leave. The vast majority of them, about 65% of them, had to take at least some unpaid leave, and nearly 5% of the women who were surveyed took no leave at all.
Wow.
After childbirth. So, we know that this is a really serious issue, and not only for mothers, but for parents in general, also for folks who are family caregivers. So we touched on this a little bit earlier, but folks who have maybe older parents, or even just a loved one who gets sick or is going through a surgery or something. It's really important for folks to be able to have that time to take care of those caregiving responsibilities, but particularly we know that the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act only guarantees unpaid leave.
Right.
And so for a lot of folks, especially the families that we've been talking about tonight, they really may not
they can't
be
do
able
that.
to afford it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And even if they say, well, I'm just going to somehow take a couple of weeks off, physically that may not be enough, mentally it may not be enough, and the stress of not bringing home that paycheck just compounds everything else.
Absolutely.
And the U.S. lags so far behind other developed nations in this. I mean, it's really astounding.
Absolutely. And again, through A Better Balance, our legal helpline, we hear about this, unfortunately, all too often. So there was one woman here in Nashville, her name is Teresa Gonzalez, and she became pregnant and was planning to take, just 6 weeks unpaid leave, was going to get right back to work, was looking forward to going back to work. And she actually ended up being terminated by her employer because their policy was not to allow more than 5 days off. And so, and she at the time was not eligible for FMLA. So here's another issue that we run into that's sort of this gap in the laws, is that not all workers are eligible for the Federal Family and Medical Leave Act.
Because she probably didn't work enough hours or hadn't been with the company long enough?
Exactly.
Is that what the problem was?
Yeah, exactly. So she had been there less than a year. And in her case, she was the sole breadwinner for her family. So, you can just imagine the stress and strain that this causes for her family, especially when she's expecting her first child.
Yeah.
And so, we actually had her story was featured in the New York Times, and there's a really poignant quote from her where she said, this is supposed to be a time of joy, but instead my experience as a first-time mother in the American workforce left me traumatized.
Oh, I bet. I mean, 5 days after, let's say, if she, to go back to work, I can't even imagine. I've had 2 children. I cannot imagine 5 days later.
Absolutely.
No.
Like you said, it's barely even physically possible.
Right.
And there's some stats just to back up what Feroza was saying. So we took a look at, if a woman in Tennessee has to take 12 weeks of unpaid leave, it costs her on average a little over $7,300, which is about 49% of her family's income for that quarter. And when you lose 49% of your family's income, you're losing half your family's income, you're making some really different economic choices, some really tough economic choices, right in the midst of a time that, like the mom you mentioned said, is really supposed to be joyful.
Sure, and you said before, the average amount that you spend on daycare is $8,000.
Yeah.
So now you're really set back.
Yes, you need, just at a time when you need more money, you have a lot less money.
Yeah. And what kind of push is there being made to change this right now? Is there one?
There There is, and we see Nashville Metro government leading the way.
Wow.
You want to talk about that, Feroza? I know that was a better balance, had a lot to do with that.
Absolutely, yeah. So Nashville has sort of led the way in Tennessee in 2017, becoming the first city to guarantee paid family leave for their own employees.
Wow.
And A Better Balance was closely involved on that campaign, and we were really excited to see that, thousands of Metro government employees now have access to paid family leave. And I think it's important to point out it's not just for new parents, but also for family caregiving needs. So that's really exciting. There are about 8 states and the District of Columbia that have paid family and medical leave programs right now on the books. There are many other states who are actively considering it. And so I think this is a great opportunity where Tennessee could really get out ahead and sort of be a leader among our peer states. And so A Better Balance actually worked on a proposal here in Tennessee that would create an employee-funded paid family and medical leave insurance program.
Okay.
So
how does that work?
Yeah, so the way that it works is for about the cost of a cup of coffee every week, employees would pay into this fund. Then it could be drawn on, anytime anybody needed to take leave for a new child, or to care for a loved one, or even to care for their own serious illness. And so this is something that, some other states have experimented with, doing it sort of like this insurance program setup. And the benefits of that, for employers is it improves productivity, retention, it reduces turnover. When folks are able to take that time that they need without having to risk losing their job or their savings, it really has many positive benefits for the employer as well.
And have you seen that people are willing to participate in it? That would be my concern. They go to a workplace and we're like, well, I'm past that age. I'm not going to participate anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think it's so important to underscore, the importance of covering not only new parents, but also those with family caregiving responsibilities, and covering medical leave as well.
Yeah.
Because it really is almost a universal experience that at some point in all of our lives, we will need to take some amount of extended time off, whether it's caring for ourselves, caring for our loved ones. So, this really is a benefit that can benefit all families.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And further, you talked some about the benefit to the employers, and I think that's a really important point to emphasize, even as you're talking to folks who are like, I don't see myself ever needing this benefit, or I'm sort of past the age. This is about economics too, and it's about, so we know, for instance, that women who have access to paid family and medical leave in the year after giving birth, if they have access to that, they're 39% less likely to need public assistance. So what we're really looking at is taxpayer savings, right? And we know that if they have paid family and medical in that year, they're 10 to 17, we see a 10 to 17% increase on the number of hours that they work.
Wow.
And so this isn't just about doing right by our moms, although, oh my gosh, that's so
huge.
important.
Yes.
But it's really also about the benefits to employers and the benefits to the economy.
And that's what I was going to ask you. If somebody's sitting at home and saying, this topic really doesn't apply to me, but does it?
It does. Yeah, it applies to all of us.
Yeah. It is just really a big circle that goes around that really affects us all as we think about Tennessee across the state, and really our nation, and how we're setting up families for success.
Absolutely.
And employers for success, right? Every employer wants to retain its best employees, and so with something like paid family medical, they're able to do that. You're not, and nobody wants to train a new employee, get them operating really well, and then lose them because they can't afford childcare, or they have a family emergency and they don't have the time that they need to take off.
And that really is a big conversation that happens among many families once you get that positive pregnancy test.
Absolutely.
Okay, how are we going to do this with 2 jobs and with daycare and with hours, and does this work or does it not work? And you're sitting there with pen and paper, right?
It's kitchen table calculations.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly. We've talked a lot about the single moms who are really shouldering so much of this burden. We've talked a little bit about single dads who are also kind of really behind the 8 ball here. But what about the snapshot of a 2-parent family? What does that look like across Tennessee for the most part?
Sure. So we know that, as I said, number of people in your family sort of determines how much you need to earn. But when we look at how much married parents with 1 or 2 children need to earn, we know that 34% of married parents in Tennessee are living below that economic security line.
So still a third, one
Still
in
a
3.
third,
Wow.
right? And so so many of these policy solutions, whether it's reasonable pregnancy accommodations or paid family medical leave, we see that pregnancy, the wage gap, right, the motherhood penalty showing up there too. So being married doesn't really insulate you from it. It makes you maybe less likely to have it affect you because you have that other income. But 40%, more than half of Tennessee families have a female breadwinner, married or not married. So breadwinner means you earn 40% or more of the family's bottom line.
Okay.
And so those married parents, most of them have a female breadwinner, even though it's 2 folks both working. So the things that are impacting those single moms are also impacting those married moms.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. Wow. And when we see, excuse me, I want to go back to talking about the economic security, so people understand exactly what the heart of this gets to tonight, of our topic. To be economically secure, whether it be a single mom, single dad, or a family, what does that mean?
It just means being economically secure means you have enough money to pay for your basic needs, so food, clothing, shelter, and save a little bit for retirement or emergencies. So you are not getting rich, you're just getting by.
Yeah, absolutely, and maybe trying to save for the future.
That's right.
And when we look at the numbers, there's a whole lot of people who are not in that economically secure bucket.
Married or single, there's a whole lot of people. That's right.
And what does that mean for generations to come and decades to come? What does that look like across Tennessee then?
Yeah, and I think Feroza, that's where you've got, the great stories that you get, or they're not great stories, but they're great illustrations of folks who are being forced to make those tough choices, choosing between the health of their baby and the job that they need to, feed their growing family. And I think you hear it both in the stats and in the stories.
I'm sure you have a lot of people who call into that legal helpline that are choking back tears, or just at the point of frustration of what do I do?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think a lot of our policy advocacy that we do is really driven by the folks that we hear from through our helpline and the different struggles that they're going through in their daily lives. But, it really is a serious issue that we're hearing from women across the state still, pregnant women, new mothers, whether it is they can't get the temporary reasonable accommodations that they need to keep working, or they can't get the time off that they need. These are real serious issues for our families in the state, and it's having real economic consequences, where women are being forced onto unpaid leave, or sometimes terminated, losing their jobs. It absolutely is real, and I think it is important for folks to continue to speak up about it and share their stories, so that we can continue to raise awareness about it.
Do you find that most problems are caused by a lack of knowledge on the employer's part, or just a lack of willingness to accommodate?
It's hard to say. I think we hear so many different stories, and every situation is so different. And so, it's really just a case-by-case basis. Passing some of these policies that we've been talking about today, paid family and medical leave, guaranteeing pregnancy accommodations, tackling sort of this inequity in wages for moms and dads, all of these things would go a really long way into ensuring that these folks can rest a little bit easier. And when folks call us, we're able to tell them, yes, you are definitely protected by the law, and here are your rights. And so part of what we do at A Better Balance also is making sure that the laws that have been passed, that folks know about them, that employers and employees are educated about what their rights and responsibilities are. And so that's a really important piece of the puzzle as well, is after you get the legislation passed, you have to make sure that it's being enforced properly.
Right now, what should pregnant women, for the most part, know is their right in Tennessee?
So I think that's a great question.
That wasn't a good face, Shanna.
I mean, it's what everybody's working to change, right? But You tell us, Feroza, what women can expect right now.
Yeah, so I mean, there are certainly some protections at the federal level. I would defer to my colleagues who
Sure.
are the attorneys, and I would encourage folks to give us a call if you have questions about your situation. But we also have on our website a lot of free Know Your Rights resources.
Okay, great.
So, you know, we actually have state-by-state guides
Great.
to what laws are available to sort of help you and protect you in the workplace.
What is that website?
So if you go to www.abetterbalance.org, you can access all of our different Know Your Rights resources. You can also stay up to date with our various campaigns and advocacy efforts that we're working on.
Very good. I want to jump to the phone lines real quick. We have Dawn on the line. Hi, Dawn. What's your comment or question tonight?
Yes, ma'am. I worked in the juvenile court system for 10 years, and my question is, we would have mothers that would have 7 children, and they did not have employment, and they did not pay for health care, anything. And I was just wondering, is there any way to educate women now in the classes, so forth, to help them prevent so many births?
Okay. Interesting question.
Goodness, and I at least speaking for I think Tennessee, Dawn, that's not something that we work on. I do want to just give a shout out to an organization called A Step Ahead. Dawn, they might be worth looking up. They seem to be doing exactly the sort of thing that you're thinking about.
Okay.
So it's a nonprofit organization here. I think it's national. It's definitely across the state here in Tennessee called A Step Ahead.
Okay. Great information. Hopefully you can look that up. Thank you for calling in, Dawn. We have to take a quick break. We will come back right after this. Stay with us.